はどうかな。演奏中にもっとコミュニケーション取るの。こういう感じで。ジャカジャカジャンジャンジャカジャンジャカジャンジャカジャカジャンジャンジャカジャンジャカジャン。はい、みんなもやるよ。後ろで寂しい思いをしてるりっちゃんとコミュニケーションだよ。
Have you guys ever gotten to a point in your life where you felt the need to ask yourself, how did I get here? Yeah. Me too. Case in point, the video you're watching right now. I never thought I'd watch K-On!, let alone spend hours writing, recording, and editing a video about it, but I guess this is the timeline I've been placed in. I'm alright with that. It's left me with a lot to think about, and even more to talk about, because I don't think my opinion on a piece of media has ever 180'd so drastically until now. Before we dig into that delicious strawberry cake though, I do want to say, I'm not the most well-versed guy when it comes to anime. If we're being technical here, K-On! Is the second anime I've fully completed, and you could even call it the first if dubs don't count. Don't get me wrong, I think the medium is awesome, it's just that I've always stuck to video games when given the choice between the two. And from my understanding, talking about K-On! Is about as cliche in the anime community as talking about Jesus and church, so I'm offering up my own perspective to keep things fresh. This is the story of how I grew to adore a show I couldn't stand when I started through little more than the charm of 5 girls and 40 fucking tons of tea. The way I ended up first experiencing this show was through a deal with my brother, who, as you can see, is obsessed with this show. The deal was I'd watch at least 3 episodes of K-On! And in return, he'd try out Dark Souls. As it stands, I've paid back my debt 14 times over. So in case I'm not being clear, next time I see you, your ass better be on New Game Plus 7. One cold autumn evening, I had a friend over in my cramped college dorm. We were bored and looking for something to do when I remembered the deal I had made. I glanced over at my monitor, illuminating some Russian Netflix, and I thought to myself, fine, I guess so. And, well, we made fun of it. Of course we did. That's what you do when you're watching something with your friends. And a show about high school girls going to high school is an easy target.
All that's left now are those lyrics. Hey, big sis, I peeled a nice pear for you.
Oh my god. It's even funnier in the dub. But beyond boys being boys, I noticed a few important things about this show. The first thing I noticed is everything looks fantastic. I'd believe you if you told me this just aired yesterday, and it's over a decade old. This is thanks to the studio Kyoto Animation and their technical mastery of this art form. I mean, almost. Like most artists, they still had yet to nail those hands. Oh, gee, that is not okay. But unfortunately, that was all I saw in a positive light. The next thing I noticed was the plot, or lack thereof. The story didn't have any kind of structure or direction, and none of the characters had any strong motivation to do what they were doing. You've got Ritsu Tanaka, who wants to join the light music club with her friend Mio Akiyama because she just feels like it. Mio already signed up for the literature club, so Ritsu rips up her application, and that's that. Tsumugi Kotobuki wanders in looking for the choir club and ends up joining because she thinks Mio and Ritsu are funny. And finally, Yui Hirasawa, who just wants to join a club because she feels obligated to. She ends up coming to the light music club with the intention to quit immediately because she can't play guitar, but ends up joining anyways due to how much fun the performance they put on for her looked. So we've got 4 characters who might as well have joined this club by chance, as none of them have any passion or resolve towards music. And that's fine, maybe they'll eventually develop this and start formulating some goals that will drive the story forward. Needless to say, that did not happen. These characters seem far more interested in drinking tea than following a traditional narrative structure, but even in these early episodes when I was frustrated with how low stakes and uninteresting this story seemed, I couldn't help but notice a slight sense of appreciation for what I saw. So I quickly buried it deep in my mind out of fear that I might catch stupid dumbass syndrome. After the credits rolled for episodes 2 and 3, both of which I deemed as insignificant as the first, I messaged my brother saying I finished watching the first 3 episodes. And when he asked me what I thought, I went with honesty and said something along the lines of, I'm glad you can enjoy this, but in my eyes, this show is nothing special. And that was that. I assumed I would never watch K-On! Ever again. A few months passed and my brother and I were put under circumstances where we'd be living under the same roof again. He was dead set on me finishing the show with him, and eventually I caved and agreed to do it. So I returned to the world of K-On! And started watching 2 to 3 episodes every night. Once again, very little progress was being made in terms of their band. They got a new member, Azusa Nakano, after she watched them play at school. The 5 of them played a few gigs, and they finally named their band After School Tea Time time because of fucking course that's what it's called. The show still wasn't doing itself any favors in the story department for me, but the good aspects of it began to shine brighter the more I watched. The jokes were funny, aided heavily by the amazing animation. Even if I didn't laugh at something, they're the kind of things that make you think to yourself, yeah, these guys know what they're doing.
私、平沢ゆい、町のお花屋さん。
このお花育てるの大変かしら？
わかりません。
But beyond the comedy, during these early viewing sessions, Kyoto Animation's amazing attention to detail blew my mind. All of these little things began to add up, such as the fact that every instrument in the show is real, and the animation is always synced to whatever song the band is playing. The environments that the show focuses on are always changing based on what's been added or subtracted at any given point in time. Early on, Mugi buys a blue rag and doesn't use it until episode 37. Yui ruins her voice 3 days before a performance, and when the time comes to give it, she does the chorus for a song in a hoarse voice. Ritsu puts her hand on Yui in episode 17 for seemingly no reason until an OVA that aired months later reveals it was the setup for a joke. The people who play the music in the show purposely play good or bad to reflect the skill level of the character they're portraying. You can go on forever. Any little inconsistency you think you could find, even down to the proportions of every single major and minor character, has been delicately painted over with a labor-intensive brush. I don't even want to know how long it took to achieve the level of detail they went for. Nevertheless, all this didn't exactly fix the issues I was having with the show. I still couldn't shake the feeling of disappointment I had towards the plot. It felt like I was being shown a beautiful frame handcrafted and slaved over for seemingly forever, but the canvas on the inside was completely blank. Not to mention the abundance of cute girls being cute scenes, or moe as it's called. Which, you know, if it's your thing, but personally it's not very flattering. And it sure as hell isn't enough to carry an entire show, no matter how much you may like it. So there I was, left with a burning question. Why? Why did these brilliant individuals sacrifice their labor for a product so meaningless? And why, after every session of watching the show with my brother, was I excited to come back for more? It messed with my head. Like, I started to panic. Was I going insane? Did I succumb to the tea-flavored Kool-Aid? I needed to know what was special about this show. I knew it was doing something right, I just couldn't figure out what. So around episode 20-ish, I started doing some research on the side. I came across an interview conducted by Ultimagax with director Naoko Yamada and series composer Raiko Yoshida. I inattentively scrolled to a random question, praying it'd have my answer, and I ended up with more than I bargained for. The question was innocent enough. What did you think about the original manga when you read it? Yoshida's response read like an IGN review. Cute, entertaining, made me laugh. Got it. But Yamada's 2 cents stuck out in a different way. According to her, it's about ordinary stories in life, and these characters too are ordinary. While that style doesn't feel like it's trying to win you over, it's very easy to empathize with. Her words didn't signify, "I liked it, next question please." To me, they're the words of someone with creative vision bursting at the seams. This is what I found to be the most important thing about the original work, and when I tell this story myself, this is what I'm going to focus on. And after following that logic, all of this started to make sense. I knew this show was a slice of life, but I didn't think it would stick to the exact definition of the genre so strongly. And every element just works so well. The painstaking details and fluid animation add heavily to the believability of the world. Of course, there isn't much of a story because real life isn't structured like a movie or a novel. People carry out mundane tasks and fall into routines that make them feel comfortable. Background music is used sparingly to great effect, grounding scenes further in reality. It would have been easy to stick a simple piano piece in here to convey the tone of the scene, but if the goal is to portray life, taking out the music and letting the scene speak for itself works way better. The music isn't the only thing kept on a leash though. The camera plays by the same rules too. Very rarely will you find a grandiose sweeping shot common in most animated works. The camera is treated as if it's a real object, thus it's restricted to depicting the lives of these girls through a simple, realistic lens. It also doesn't hurt that Yamada is amazing at directing and framing her scenes, even if the transitions can feel a little goofy at times.
I'm crossing over to the dark side.
Speaking of the girls, their distinct personalities further the goals of the show by ensuring anyone can find someone to relate to. Yui is carefree and girlish, Ritsu is a brash wisecrack, Mio is reserved and mature, Mugi is thoughtful and gentle, and Azusa is structured and hardworking. Their individual traits are far more nuanced than this, but this should give you a good idea of how diverse they are at just a glance. And if you somehow can't relate to any of them, one of the handful of supporting characters can fill that gap. Personally, I found myself relating to the decisions that Ritsu made, both for better and for worse. At the end of the day, that's what the show is going for. They want you to become attached to these characters by portraying them in a realistic way, whether it's achieved through their personality traits or how the space around them is experienced. And the fact that it's so far removed from traditional structure forces you to relax, stop guessing what's going to happen next, and just enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride, huh? That's another thing I noticed during this stretch of time. If you asked me how many episodes it felt like I watched of this show, I'd probably respond with around 20, when in reality there's 41 episodes and a movie. Time always seemed to fly by while I was watching this show. I'd be intimately focused on the present moment, and I'd be having a ton of fun. I don't know about you guys, but this is how I feel when I'm hanging out with my friends. And that means everything I was just talking about that truly makes this show shine worked. I suspended my disbelief and convinced myself that these were real people. No longer was I confused about why I was enjoying this show. No longer was I frustratingly waiting for elements of drama to come in and entertain me. And no longer was I asking myself, how many times are these bitches gonna drink tea? The light switch was finally flicked all the way on. K-on's story is the story of these characters and their journey through adolescence. Nothing more, never less. They aren't changing the world, and quite frankly, nobody really cares about them, or their dream of playing in the Bubble Bowl, or whatever the hell that place was called, because it doesn't matter. They're just 5 girls pissing their lives away in a club room, and they're enjoying every second of it. To me, it conveys the message of, enjoy the time that you've got. Slow and steady wins the race. Huh. Looks like I did catch stupid dumbass syndrome, but not for the reason I was expecting. Yes, even those who dabble in symbolism can find some cool stuff here, which is pretty awesome. So at this point, I had been lured from the dark music club to the light music club. I felt like I understood the show well enough, and I was ready to see how they tied all of these elements together to create a satisfying ending. Fortunately, the show took its own advice, and took its time to build up to the conclusion. The majority of Season 2 is spent focusing on the only real conflict the group faces in the show. Since the 4 original girls are now seniors, they slowly become more aware that their days in the club are numbered. And this has the biggest effect on Azusa, who's a grade level below them and can't stand being alone. In my eyes, this by itself makes the second half of the show stronger than the first. It's easy to understand why these girls are distressed. Every single episode serves to strengthen the relationship these 5 have with each other. So when they start hitting you with the sad stuff, you feel it. And you relate to it. And just like the rest of the show, it's extremely well made. Towards the end, there's an episode dedicated entirely to the group's final school festival show. And at the end of it all, everyone sits together in the club room and starts talking about all the shows they're going to play next year, as the camera cuts away and somber music subtly flows in to clue the viewer in on what's about to happen. It's still natural to assume they're all just being their usual stupid selves, but as the camera cuts back to them, yeah. It's the good kind of emotionally manipulative. The way they each tried to deny the inevitability of leaving, which builds up to a collective eruption of emotion. It's as raw and believable as it wants to be. I thought it wouldn't be possible to top this one fantastic little scene. But wow, this list of symptoms keeps getting bigger, doesn't it? This is the same show I was taking a dump on with my buddy just a few months ago. To my knowledge, this is the only song in the entire show where each girl playing has a singing part. So let that give you an idea of how special this song is to the group, especially Yui. I found the way she acted completely out of character the most endearing thing about this whole ending. The way she acts on top of everything, doesn't get distracted, and for the first time since, well, ever, guides the activities of the club by herself, shows just how much she cares about Azusa. And that's just one of the emotional layers at play here. It truly is the perfect culmination of everything the show was about. Look, all I'm saying is this whole sequence is an exercise in restraint for those with weak tear ducts. Fortunately for me, I've hardened to these kinds of endings thanks to another very special piece of media that ends with a very similar message. I'm not complaining though. I got to sit back with a sly grin thinking, you clever motherfuckers. The lyrics, that picture, those tears, the 5-petaled flower. Guys, come on. Not to mention, there's the movie, whose entire purpose is to show the creation of this song and how important it is to everyone. I'd say it's mandatory viewing if the ending of this show meant anything to you. It really shows off the purest kind of affection. The kind that makes you drink a little too much tea and write stuff like, if you say you love us, we'll tell you we love you twice. Yeah, it's really corny, but that doesn't make it any less genuine. I should probably get around to telling my brother his favorite show really is something special, but I guess it never mattered what I thought, huh? Happy birthday, by the way. And to the people who put this work together who aren't around anymore, it's not much, but I hope you can rest easier knowing that your work means something to me, and I know I'm not alone. Cherish the time you have, people, and when it's time for things to change, smile because it happened, and cry because you know it comes from a good place.